Hey, NAMI students, Mr. Yance, day 3 of notes on joints. Hopefully, you watched and did your e-learning last Friday, so you should have watched the knee or the hip replacement surgery. That's what I want to talk a little bit about today is replacements. I got a knee artificial joint up there. So I showed you on the last video, what happens if we tear a meniscus, we tear an ACL, PCL, and how they can fix that arthroscopically. Sometimes knees get to the point, though, where arthroscopic surgery is no longer an option, that it's so bad and the bones are grinding against each other and there's so much arthritis in there. And I'll talk about arthritis at the end of notes here. So your only option is replacement. Now, replacements can be partial or can be total. It just depends on how bad the knee is. And what we're looking for is pain free, so that person gets mobility back and isn't in pain. That's the idea. So sometimes we replace the articular cartilage, just the surface. Sometimes we replace the joint itself, the hinge, and that sometimes is quite extensive. And this is going to take a little longer, and it's going to be a little more extensive surgery. You can't make just a little porch. You got to open up. You probably saw that from the hip replacement. So there's a couple different ways we can attach these parts. And hang on a second, let me show you some of these parts. I have some of them here. Let me grab them real quick. Okay, so these parts can be stainless steel. This is actually titanium. This is actually what goes over the top of the bottom of the femur. So you have a nice smooth surface. From the thing you guys watched, we can replace the ball and socket, which is this part of it, or we can, replace the other part, or both. This gets driven down into the femur, which looks kind of crazy. I actually pound that down with a mallet, if you can believe that. So the big thing is, how do we attach so that these things will stay where they need to stay as a person moves and jumps and runs and does things, because you don't want to just put them in and say, oh, you're going to do certain activities. There's a couple of different ways we can attach them to the body. And older people that aren't going to be, running and jumping and doing things that a younger person might do, they'll probably elect to have bone cement. It's an acrylic, almost looks like caulk that they put in there. The nice thing with bone cement is it sets up in 15 minutes. That person doesn't have very many restrictions. They can get them up and moving and doing things very, very quickly. So in an older person, that's a good option. My uncle had a hip replaced when he's like in his 50s, and he says, hey, I still want to be active and do things. So he elected to have a press fit. That is a porous coating that has holes in it. And what it does is it allows tissue to grow up through the holes. So unlike bone cement, that's literally, it's going to adhere just like glue does. This has little microscopic holes. Now, this is going to be a little better and more durable. The problem is it takes time for that tissue to grow through there, so that person has a lot more restrictions. They can't go up and down stairs. They have to be careful getting in and out of cars. They're on crutches a lot longer. The rehab's a lot longer. So it just depends. Which one do you get? How active are you? How young are you? And that's things that we have to look at. So these artificial joints are a big thing, and what's crazy is Warsaw is the leading manufacturer of artificial parts in the nation. They have 3 big companies there, DePuy and Zimmer and Biomed, and they're big places that make these replacement parts, and we're getting better with them. Look at these numbers. It's something that is kind of staggering. We'll have up over 500,000 people just in this country get knee implants. Another 200,000, those numbers are going up as well, get hips. And the ultimate goal is what you see right here. 92 to 95% of people that have these replacement parts put in don't just get improvement, dramatic improvement in pain and function. That's what we're after. This is what's changing. When we've been putting replacement parts in for 30 years, so it's not something new. But we want to get this up, and I think they are. I have a cousin that's an engineer for Zimmer, and he says these replacement parts will last up to 25 to 30 years coming up here, if not already. So that is awesome stuff. Okay, so it's usually a pretty good surgery. It's pretty long surgery, but it's pretty crazy what they can do. Now, I do want to show you this. I don't want to be a depressing person, but I did want to show you this to kind of show you how this works. This is my mother-in-law who's 83. When she was like 76, she had this hip put in with a long shaft, the ball and socket. She has a history of her family having degenerative problems. So this one went really well. She's had no problem and she was very mobile and doing well. And then she got to be 81 and her other hip was bothering her as well. So the doctor, same surgeon, he thought, well, let's put a short shaft in. So her recovery will be faster. She's older. I don't want to drive this part in any further than I have to. But we didn't realize how brittle her bones were, and just the rocking of this short shaft. You can see this is actually part of her femur. It broke loose and fractured, and her hip dropped from this line up here, clear down to this line right here. This is supposed to be up here, and it was not a good thing. And she is not very mobile today because they went in and took this out. An awful surgery. The surgeon said, if I have to do that again, I may retire. So it was just not a good situation because this was all brittle and broken. They had to wire it together, and she's still struggling. So I'm not saying that these surgeries always go out without a hitch. Most of the time they do, but sometimes we do have issues depending on the age of the patient. And somebody might ask, and we've had that question asked of us, why did you have that surgery done at 81? Well, it doesn't matter what age you are, you want to be mobile. My mom's 88. She wants to go and exercise and walk and do things, and that's something I think that we have to understand. And our population is getting older, so these numbers with hip and knee replacements are not going down. They'll probably go up because the baby boomers are that population is going up all the time. All right. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully you watched the video. I'm not going to play that video. I will post the notes online. You can watch it if you want, but it's the same video I had you watch for the e-learning, so you should have an idea how that works. Okay, just want to start this next thing and see if we can get caught up with my classes with notes. So we're going to change gears. So let's shift gears. We're done with surgeries and replacements and all that stuff. So let's talk a little bit about how things are classified in the joint world as far as movement. Um, there's a couple different ways we can look at how joints move. And we're going to look at angular ones, and we're going to pair these up. So hopefully these make sense, and I can demonstrate a few of these. So flexion and extension go together. Flexion is where we decrease the angle between the bones. All right, so if I got my lower arm here, hopefully you can see this. I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit. So I got my lower arm, and I'm going to bring it up, flexing a muscle, right, like bicep curls, right? That is going to decrease the angle between my lower arm and my upper arm. Thus, that's called a flexion. Also, bending your fingers, that's decreasing the angle. If I take my arm and I withdraw it like this, that decreases the angle. So that's flexion. So remember, flexion is decreasing. Extension is the opposite. If I drop my arm, now I'm increasing the angle. Thus, I am doing an extension. If you've ever done any weightlifting, yoga, things like that, we do a lot of flexion extension to work different muscles. Okay, so if I'm working my triceps, I'm going to do one type. If I'm working my bicep, I'm going to do a different one. So weightlifting and things like that are pretty common with these. Straightening is also an extension, and stretching. Just stretching out is also considered an extension activity. So, I might put some of these people on there like this and little stickman guys or guys and say, okay, which one is this? Okay, so be aware of that. That could be on the test. Our test will be Tuesday, by the way, of next week. So get these down, okay? Let's do a few others. Let's get the angular ones out of the way, and we'll call it good for today. Another type of movement is abduct and adduct. Kind of confusing. Abduction means away. Adduction means towards. So if I got my arm straight and I move it out to the side, that is called abduction. Think of if you abduct someone, you are taking them away. Okay. So any movement, your leg to the side would also be an abduction. Okay. And an adduction, if I bring it back towards the median line of the body, now we're talking about a adduction. Okay. So abducts away, adduction is towards. So think of that center line down the body. We've had that term first chapter. That's what we're doing. Okay. Rotation, circular movements. Pretty simple. If I pivot, now this is interesting. If I pivot my head and say no, that is a rotation because I'm pivoting a bone on its axis. If I shake my head yes or no, that is a flexion and extension type of movement. So it depends on what plane we're looking at, which movement you have. So some of these can go different directions, okay? Circumduction, I'm moving my arm. My fingertips out on the end are a circle, okay? Hopefully you see that, right? That's a circle. But back towards my shoulder becomes like a megaphone. That's called circumduction. Pretty simple. Supination, move my forearms out, my palms turn up. If I rotate my forearms in and my palms go down, that's called pronation, which is misused by the foot a lot of times. I hear even podiatrists use that with the foot. It's actually not. It's actually with the arms. Okay, this little side note. So this thing, palms up, supination, palms down, pronation. Kind of tricky. A lot of people get those backwards on my test. So kind of take note of that. All right. And let's just kind of finish this up. So then we'll be caught up with my classes, at least for today. Okay. And then we have gliding. Pretty simple, just your wrist and your ankles. They're just kind of moving against each other. They're not really changing angles or rotating. They're just kind of doing this number. They're just gliding. It gives us dexterity and makes our wrists go different directions, but nothing too complex there. And then if they don't fit into gliding and circular and angular, that's the three main groupings. We got a catch-all group we call special movements. Inversion is turning the sole of the foot in and your ankle rolls out. Okay, like you see right here. That's called an inversion, and we use that with ankle sprains. They have an inversion ankle sprain, pretty common. Eversion with an E is your ankle actually turns, your foot turns out, your ankle goes in, which is unusual. Usually you step on something, you see it down here. That would be an eversion, which can result in a broken bone a lot of times because your ankle just isn't designed to go that direction. All right. Kind of some other special movements. Protraction, think of your shoulders. I move them forward. That's protraction. I go back, it's retraction. Re. Okay, so pretty simple. And if you stand up on your tiptoes, that's called an elevation. And if you go back down, that's called a depression. All right. So these are just terms that you're going to just have to sit down and look at and get down. They're not really complex, but there are things that can get very confusing on the test. All right. Okay, that's it. So we're caught up for today. Have a good day. If you got any questions, you know where my email's at. So hey, have a good day, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.